Hey, First United Methodists, it's Pastor Shannon here with our weekly update for November 5th. And I'm going to take this opportunity to share about our church conference that is going to be held this upcoming Sunday, November 10th, immediately following our worship service. The church conference is open to anyone, but only church members can vote. There are going to be two things that we are going to be discussing and voting on at this church conference. The first is a proposal to move our leadership structure to something called the Simplified Accountable Structure. It's also called the Single Board Model of Leadership. And the second is to discuss a potential land sale to the Excelsior Springs Parks and Rec department. Now, first, let's talk about the simplified structure. This is a model of leadership that many United Methodist churches have already adopted over the past 5 or 7 years. And essentially, it takes the work of all the traditional elected committees, the SPPRC, the Finance Committee, the trustees, and it rolls up their work into a single governance board or leadership team. And the idea is that this will help streamline our decision making. So instead of a decision having to go through, 1 or 2 or 3 committees before it can get approved, all that can be discussed and voted on at one time. This will also just help us focus more on mission and ministry and not on having a bunch of meetings. Additionally, with the size of our congregation, this also frees up people to be able to serve our church in other ways, again, besides just sitting in committee meetings once a month. Now, the goal of this new structure is not to eliminate the number of people who have a say or a voice or a vote in our church and in our church's future. Rather, it is to free more people up to do the actual work of ministry. We are not eliminating committees that will be considered ministry teams, so that includes our missions committee, our worship committee, our hospitality committee, our education committee, and our treehouse preschool board. We're also not eliminating the work of the SPPRC, the trustees, and the finance teams. Instead, their work will now be done by a single governance board. And I want to make very clear that even if you are not a part of this leadership board, which can only be about 9 to 12 people, there are so many opportunities and ways to get involved in our church. Serving on one of these ministry teams, volunteering in one way or another. So there's different ways that you can be a part of the future of our church and have a voice in the say of our church, even if you are not on this single board. I also kind of want to go over the timeline. This isn't a decision we have entered into hastily or lightly. This is something that I began exploring back in the spring, back in March, April, May. I brought it to the Ad Council for them to review it and begin exploring it, and they approved that we can begin to explore this model on June 5th. Then later in the summer, on August 18th, we presented this model to the church at our all-church town hall. Then later in October, on October 9th, anyone was invited to the training, but current Ad Council members and current elected committee members underwent a training that was led by Reverend Cindy Buman, and she's a retired UMC pastor and a former DS. Just this past Sunday, the nominations committee has selected a tentative slate of nominees for the new board. And of course, I've been personally reading up on this model. I've got different books that I have been reading and studying. You're welcome to read those along with me. And this also won't be the end of the learning and the engaging. There are opportunities for continued training and coaching, including a training day that the district is putting on for all churches that are in the simplified structure, and that'll take place on January 25th. But now we've come to the point of the process where it's time for the church to vote, to give their approval to this new leadership structure. And once again, the church conference is open to anyone, but only members can vote. And I really want to emphasize that if you have any questions or concerns about this new leadership structure, please reach out to me this week. Please let me know any questions you might have. You can also reach out to any current members of our Ad Council because they underwent training as well. But on Sunday, our DS will be here to lead us through the church conference, and we want to be respectful of her time and not take up too much of her time with questions or discussions. We want to have those questions and discussions answered now so that when you come in on Sunday morning, you'll be ready to vote. I also know that there's a Chiefs game at noon, so I know we all want to get out quickly for that. So please email me, text me, call me this week if you have any further questions or concerns. Now, the second matter that we are going to be voting on is the potential land sale to the Parks and Rec department. Now, this is something that has been in discussion for a long time, I believe even since before I became your pastor 2 years ago. Where we're kind of at in that process is that we have like a tentative or a handshake agreement with the Parks and Recs department. However, their budget will not allow them to move forward with the sale until after the calendar year. But in the meantime, we want to get your approval to start going through with the process. And one of those things that we will need to do as a part of this process is conduct a land survey. This is a pretty big cost. It will be about $2,000 to $3,000. And since this is a really big expense, we want to make sure that everyone is in favor of proceeding with the land sale before we move forward with this expenditure. Just kind of some logistical details. The tentative agreement is to sell about 2.5 acres of land for $20,000 to the Parks and Rec department. This will allow them to have further upgrades to the Rainbow Splash Park that is just south of our church building. And essentially, this land is unusable for us. It is landlocked. It is on the other side of the tree line, on the other side of a creek bed. It is inaccessible from the road. There's nothing that we are planning on doing with this land. So this is a good way for us to be good neighbors to our friends here in Excelsior Springs, and also, have a little bit more money to pay off our current debts as well. All right, so that's a lot of information. I understand that you might have concerns or questions. Once again, my door is open. Please let me know this week if there's anything that you want to discuss or get more information on, so that we can be prepared and ready for our church conference on Sunday. It's also preschool Sunday, so it will be a great day of joy and excitement, and I'm looking forward to seeing you then.